beautiful people across the globe. We just want to welcome you to another edition of DAKICKBACK, The Kickback, with Sharika, Sabrina, and EB.
What's good, Kickback family? Hopefully you guys are doing well wherever you are listening to this episode. I hope you are having a great day, and if you're not, I guess that makes one of us, and depending on what Sabrina and Sharika says, because I'm having a great day. So if you're not, then sucks to be you in this moment, but I hope things turn around rather sooner than later. Like, we're in March, you got March, April, parts of May, depending on who you ask. This part of like that spring part of things that's like new life, a freshness, things that are vibrant and vivid, whether it be colorful. Like, let's not walk around dead. Like, there's already enough of that going on in this lovely world. Don't be one that follows that crowd or that suit. But if I had to give you guys a number, I would say I'm about at a cool breeze, beautiful 87. I'm at an 87. No
cool breeze,
real reason why.
Cool breeze at 87.
Yeah, it's Florida. Like, the sun is out at 87 and you got a breeze coming. Like, you got the wind still out, or it's blowing. Well, the wind is always blowing. It's just not impactful. Like, not freezing. Like, anything under 80 is freezing. So if it's in the 70s, like, that's freezing. That ain't no cool breeze.
Oh my goodness.
Like, for those of you who think that that's not, make sure you stop moving to Florida and tell your cousins, your mammies, your pappies, and all these other raggedy behind people to stop moving to Florida so these house prices can level out or something, because y'all just making things ridiculous. Like, leave our cool breeze in the 80s alone. And if y'all don't think it's cool, then stay where y'all get snowed in at, and God continue to be with you with your frozen water heaters.
Dang.
Yes, but yeah, when I say a cool breeze, I mean, like, you can look outside. For those of you who listen to the podcast, typically in Florida, I don't know what other people listen to that, but if you look outside, you see how the trees move a little bit. Like, you look out your windows right now, if you're driving and you listen to the podcast, you see that just that little subtle little push of the trees swaying left to right. That's what I mean by a cool breeze, where, like, I'm outside, the sun is out at 87, but I'm not sweating. That's the difference. Like, it's just, it feels good, That's how I'm feeling. How about y'all, Sabrina, Sharika? How y'all feeling today?
I'm feeling good. A little sleepy, but other than that, I'm good. Ain't nothing really going on, which is sometimes a good thing. Just enjoying the life the Lord has blessed me with. I think my temp is probably 83. And I'm just living life, doing what I gotta do. I just started thinking of that Brandy song, Sitting on Top of the World. I'm just trying to be me, doing what I got to do. People think that I'm just sitting on top of the world. That's not really how I feel, but that's just what was on my mind. Sabrina, how are you?
I'm feeling really good. I'm going to stick with my sunny and 75. Is it just me, or is this not like the best time of year in Florida? I love it. Now I was giving EB a hard time talking about the cool breeze, but the weather has actually been kind of nice, and there really has been a nice breeze over the past couple of days. I was at church last night, and on the way out, I was like, this just feels amazing out here. I don't know if it was quite 87. I don't know what the temperature was, but the breeze was very nice. Only thing, I don't really have this problem a lot, but a lot of people are complaining about the pollen. So that's the only thing in the weather right now that people are like not too happy about, but I am enjoying it.
And that's a fair complaint, because it is everywhere. I got such an attitude the other day when I washed my car. Literally, it was in the driveway for like maybe 30 minutes. I didn't put it in the garage because I knew I was going to be on my way back out. Already pollen everywhere. And I'm like, listen, this car is not even paid off yet. I need y'all to calm down. I'm trying to keep it clean, keep it up, keep it looking new. But the pollen is really working. The enemy is against me with the pollen, over here. But that being said, I feel what you said before that about how it actually feels outside is dead on. I didn't know that I love the Florida, late winter, early spring vibe. It's just not too hot. It's just perfect. If it was like this all the time, maybe I would be like, you know what? I love Florida. But in my heart of hearts, y'all, I was in North Carolina. I got to spend some time with my sorority sisters, one who lost her mom. And every time I go to North Carolina, I'm like, this is me. This is where I need to be. This is home, sweet home. I love North Carolina. Even though it's a whole bunch of there's only 2 cities like I would live in North Carolina, because everything else is like small town, and that is not my vibe. But there's seriously no place like home. And I do want to say, I really appreciate the way our country does the funeral services for veterans, because after the service in-house, we went to the graveyard, and I didn't know they did this. This is like my first veteran funeral. The soldiers were there with guns, and they played taps, and they shot them, and they folded the flag in this beautiful way. And they were so like, it was done with dignity and decorum. And I just will never forget that. And you just felt such a respect. And I love that they do that. They're not like, okay, you're honorably discharged. Thanks for the service. Like, they are there right at the end too, to thank you again and honor the time that you spent away from your family and giving to your country. So that was really, really beautiful. But I'm in a great mood. I think I told y'all last episode, it's March Madness, and it just keeps piling on little fun and exciting things for us to do this month, the month of my husband's birthday. And my song is First Time by Ed Sheeran. Shout out to Ed Sheeran, because he has a lot of little bops. He's definitely not underappreciated. I just don't think of him a lot, but I heard this song and it's totally my vibe for this day or this season that I'm in. He talks about the first kiss, the first night, the first song that made you cry, the first drink, red wine on a step in Brooklyn. I still feel the first fight, and we both made it out alive, which is hilarious. And I can't wait to make a million more first times. I think when you are seasoned in your relationship, and I think Shariq and Evie can speak to this more than I can, because they were both with their partners for like ever before they were ever engaged or married. But you can kind of just get in this routine and this rhythm, like that, you know, the person. And I feel like that with Doug. Like, I know him, but the other day we got out of our routine. We usually like, he comes home, we're working out, have dinner, we watch a TV show together, and then we're getting ready for bed. But for whatever reason, the other night we didn't do that. We didn't turn the TV on, and we were just sitting on the couch. And then like 2 hours went by and we're just talking, and I was discovering new things about him. And I'm like, oh my gosh, babe, we have to continue having these sort of connection points. And yes, we do a date night at least once a month and we alternate, but like just sitting down, because we did this all the time when we were dating. We talk on the phone, you know, we didn't live together. There are just a lot more of those kind of unfiltered, free moments where we're just really honing in on each other. And so I was like, oh, I hope I have like a million more little first time moments where I'm discovering new things about you and your personality. Now, what I discovered, it was kind of disturbing. He was like, oh yeah, like I guess this is from him being in the military. He was like, and me, like, because somehow we got on the topic of, is there something about you that would still surprise me? Like, if there's something you don't think I know about you that you would find surprising. And he was like, oh yeah, like I have a switch in me that I could just turn on and I could kill without thinking or feeling. And I was like, oh my gosh, babe, should I be concerned? You know, like I know, but he was saying, you know, because of being in the military is just something that was just in him. And he's like, even to this day, like I know that that's in me, not just random people. And, you know, I had to ask a lot of questions. I was like, let's clarify. Do you need some help? Is this like a white boy school shooter situation? He's like, no, but like if my family was in danger, if I was like called to service, like I know I could do that. There's just a switch in me that all feeling emotions off, and it's just about that. So
how do you get I just am like, how do they train that? Like, how do you get to that like switch where where does that happen? That's so intriguing.
I don't know. It wasn't.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think all of us somewhat have that. Is just, is it being tapped or not? Now, some people in the best way, and I can't speak for Doug specifically, but like, I would just say this. I know there's some individuals, because of just being in moments of fight or flight, you'll naturally just have it. And it'll be like, okay, there's not necessarily saying no remorse, but it's like, it's whatever. Like you become numb to it because this is, in a sense, my livelihood, or it's you or me. And some people can naturally tap into that. You see it sometimes, a lot of people will see it more often in like what we would consider actors or entertainers or athletes. So you're like, how do you turn that on and off? Like, I know we talked about Tom Brady here and there, but it's like, you think about somebody like that, right, who's all into football, and it didn't seem like he could turn that part of his life off for the sake of his family at a time. Now, I don't know all their ins and outs, but then there's other people, like I'll use LeBron James, for example, who's just like, you would not be able to tell the difference from the athlete LeBron James to the family man, because he's all in on both of these things. Like, you know, he's one of the ones we talk about for 20 years consecutively, being in the NBA, being drafted at the age of 18 years old, put all the pressure on his back, so to speak. And then it's like, you hear of no scandals, you hear of no craziness. The most you hear is, oh, he left one organization to go play with his friends in another organization. That's like his biggest like NBA type thing, which people in the rest of the world do that all the time. Like, hey, I'll only do a film with this person, or I only work for this company, or I only hang out with these people, or I only go on a friend's vacation with this group of people. And it's like, that's normal life to do it with your friends. And so I think Doug and similar individuals, especially being in that military mindset where you know everything, in a sense, not everything, but just a lot of what you do has a greater impact, bigger than yourself, because of everybody who comes behind you, in the sense of, as far as support, who's on the battlefield with you, people who are helping make decisions from an upper tier leadership or that hierarchy, but they're also thinking of your family and your loved ones who are back home, who are benefiting, so to speak, from the work that you're putting in. And now even in your home, like, you have somebody who kicked down the door and you got a firearm. It's like, it's either you or me. Like, it's like, why would I not do this? Or I'll break off after this last one. But even with like a couple of years ago, you had a lot of people calling T.I. crazy, of like, why would you have so much money and you have your wife and you have your kids? Like, why would you be a celebrity with all these guns or still trying to live in the street life? And his response, in my opinion, was eloquent, of like, what do you do when there's people who are willing to kick down your doors with AK-47s, who's shooting 100 rounds per second within their guns, or a few seconds or whatnot? He was like, how do I not do what I can to protect my wife and protect my kids? Like, it's not me trying to live this life or portray a lifestyle that people will look at me crazy, but it's like, I know constantly there's people who are out here trying to get me or trying to get what I have. And like, I have a family to protect. Like, at the end of the day, I'm a human being. Yes, I've had drug charges. Yes, I've been locked up. Yes, I'm a convicted felon, XYZ, but it's like, it's either they kill me and my family, or I find a way to defend myself in these moments. And like, what am I not to do? And of course, other people say, well, you get paid security and you do all of this. But then also, there's some people who want to handle those issues on their own, because at the end of the day, it still will fall on you. Like, if your security crumbles, or if something goes rogue with your security, or if they tell more than they should to certain people, then that still is, I guess you could say, a gap in the whole of what you're trying to protect, or what you're entrusted with. So you still sometimes got to just do things on your own, because you can live with that most times than living with what somebody else could or could not have done for you.
I guess when you think about, if you're I've never, thank God, been in a life or death situation, and the fact of like something that I could, whether it's fight back or something, like where I could actually have a role, or if I don't make the right move, either myself or a loved one or someone, even maybe just someone I'm around at this point, could, lose their life. I guess I've never been pushed maybe to the point of those who train for the service, or in any situation, whether you just, live in a dangerous situation, whether, or a dangerous area, a war-torn country, whatever it is. I guess I've never been in a place or situation where life or death is like right in front of me. So maybe that's why I don't really understand like that switch. And not that I want that experience. I'm grateful that I don't.
I think for me, it's not even a switch. I'm more, it's hilarious to compare myself to LeBron James, because not at all, but I think just that energy of it, I don't feel like something would have to turn off in me to do that. I feel like if the situation called for it, I would just get the job. It would just have to happen. And I would still be the same Sabrina. Like, I wouldn't have to be like right now today, I'm telling you, I could kill someone if they were trying to kill me, like, no, or if I saw them like harming a child. There are just something, like if there was some racist that came into my mother's home, like, boom, dead. And I would go to court and be like, I'm not sorry, so give me the time that you have to give me. Like, that's just it. It's not a switch. But it was interesting hearing him just talk through that, and him sharing with me, like, I feel like this is something about me that would surprise you. And he's not wrong, because he is the most like chill person. I mean, I've seen bouts like when the weave store the haircut in place wouldn't cut my weave. Yeah, he had a little outburst, but like, I don't think of my husband as like, oh, he's a killer.
But he wasn't even trying to be violent at that moment. He was
he wasn't violent.
And exactly. So he was just, mm-hmm.
Exactly. So yeah, that was but all that to say, sorry, we went on this long tangent about the ability to kill and having a switch. I think the heart of what I was getting at is not just, and when it comes to romantic relationships, but the people you think there's so much more that you don't know. And, don't take that relationship to granted. Open your eyes to the new things that you can discover about them all the time. It's beautiful to be able to have that in a friendship, in your family, or in a romantic relationship. And that's why my temp is First Times by Ed Sheeran.
I wanted to say though that like that is what you were talking about, like just taking that time to rediscover or get to know or grow with your partner, like that. A lot of people talk about, that when they divorce or whatever, what are the leading causes? They don't know the person they're married to anymore, because you get into the routines of things and you're doing the day-to-day thing, and then you look around and you're like, what is my life? Who are these people? What is going on? And
these people.
Yeah, because you'd be like, who is this person? Like, I don't know them anymore. They're not or you're not who you were anymore either. And so,
but I would hope we wouldn't be, right? Like, I feel like at least the three of us on this call have a value in personal growth. Like, I look back at who I was at 25, and I am so glad that I'm not that same person. And I hope when I'm 45, there's 10 years worth of growth there.
I mean, yes, but what if you and your partner don't have these moments to reconnect, and you are both growing, but you're growing apart because you haven't made an investment to stay connected?
Well, I think that brings in another part of the conversation, because I've heard that angle of people growing apart. And I think even if you grow apart, like, I don't care how far Doug thinks he ever will grow apart from me. You committed to me for life. And you didn't say if she stays the exact same Sabrina. Because there were things about my personality when we get married that were like black and white. It will never be this. One of them was being at church every Sunday. I remember early in our dating, like he's really into baseball, and they had like this fantasy league draft that was going to take like 3 hours. And he had told me he was going to be at church, and he wasn't for this. And I was ready to break up. And now I'll be the main one, like, I'm going to take a Sabbath at home. You can go if you want. So if he was like, well, you've changed. This is not what I signed up for. Like, no. And there are other things that can happen like that. Obviously, if anything is like, causing you harm mentally, physically, or emotionally, that's different. But when I committed to him before God and man, I was committed to be with this person. And that means if Doug decides tomorrow, I'm trying to pull something out there now. If he suddenly decides he's a very messy person, we're both kind of fortunate because we're both more neat, and I hate a mess. I don't get to divorce Doug and be like, well, he leaves his clothes everywhere now, so now I get to, it's like, no, like in my mind, but everybody sees that commitment and that relationship different. I'm curious how you and Evie feel about that, like how people can grow apart, and if they do something that's drastically different or grow in a drastically different way, do you think it's fair for you to be like, you're not the person I married and I want out?
I'll let EB go for it because I know.
Like, just before you go, Sabrina, could you rephrase that question for me just to make sure I'm hearing you correctly? So I don't want to go off on a tangent.
No, you're fine, because I don't even know that I know the full question. I'm just kind of throwing things out and verbally processing, because Sharika brought this idea of like, well, people can grow apart, especially when they don't take time to have those connection points. It can happen because you assume you know everything about the person or whatever the reasons are. And then my rebuttal to that was, even if you do grow apart, that doesn't mean the relationship's over. It just means there's new work to be done because you didn't commit to being with the person that you married as they are. You just committed to being with this person for the rest of y'all's lifetimes.
Yeah, so I would say that's a great question, and for me personally, because I think we've all seen it, and I don't say we've all seen it. I don't say I think I know we've all seen it where there's people who we know who were together and who are no longer together, whether that be significant relationships that you're like, hey, I never expected that to fall off, or married couples who have just found a way to part ways and to find, for some of them, new love, or don't know what they got going on. You just know they're no longer together. I think you hit it on the head of like, yes, at whatever that moment was of you locked in with that other person, it could easily fade. And I say easily, it's just because people who are not willing, and it could be on one side or it could be on both, or it could be just naturally happens because of life, not wanting to put the work in. And one of the things I've always remembered, I heard it during my premarital for me and Judith, and I continue to hear it when I speak to people, of just saying, never stop dating your wife. Because typically when you're dating your spouse, you're trying to, I would say, not necessarily gain their attention, but just learn more information, get more insight, see how they're doing. And for me and Judith, who we were in 2009 when we met, in 2011 when we started dating, is not the same people that we are right now. So like, you'll never get to that point of knowing your spouse fully, because you and your spouse will continue to grow, whether it's year 5, year 10, year 15, year 20. In marriage, you'll continue to grow, whether it's having kids, having grandkids, adopting, like whatever it end up being, having new jobs, new careers, scheduling changes, where you begin to learn a new side of that person, similar to what you talked about with just having the conversation with Doug, of just having new moments where you're like, oh, I didn't know that. Like, that's something new. And like, y'all been married for 3 years going on 4, but also been dating prior to that. And you're going to continue to learn things when you are intentional with the person that you are trying to do life with. I think you drift apart, or you easily lose interest in a person when you don't want to put the work in, or you're not intentional in that relationship of wanting to know more about the person that you have said you're committed to doing the rest of your life, or spending the rest of your life with.
I agree. And now part of your question, Sabrina, was, if you grow apart, does that mean that's grounds to leave or whatever? Personally, well, I see the situation like 2 different ways. I see the emotional side of it, of like, whatever. Let's say you were in a relationship and you and your spouse have grown apart. And I'm saying grown apart as in like the energy, the effort has not been put towards the relationship. Maybe people say sometimes, oh, you just become like roommates. And you don't want a roommate relationship. You want a real loving communication and partner and all that stuff. And like, I agree. Just like you can grow apart, you can grow back together again. So does that mean that it's reason to leave? I would say no, but I would say I can understand how that could be that is a hard place to be in. And especially if it's an extended period of time, could be years. I could understand how that could be very difficult for people to want to, leave that situation, especially if they feel that looks like the other person is not willing to work or do their part. I could understand that. But then if I look at the side of the commitment side, we also, you committed to death do you part. And if death has not, now I do believe that there are times, like if it's a dangerous or violent or, that kind of abuse or those kind of things, obviously you shouldn't stay. But growing apart, wouldn't say it is necessarily a reason to leave, unless the way that person has grown has become, counter to who I am, or what, like if that person is like, you know what, I don't know. I'm like, if they were like, I don't believe in the Lord, I don't, if we had family,
that would be hard.
Yeah, or you know what, I don't believe in God anymore. I got, I don't want my children to be raised like, and with you teaching them or talking to them about God. I don't know. See, those kind of situations, maybe like, hey, that's now in the Bible, it does talk about one spouse is not a believer and one spouse is. But I wonder if that's because, is that how y'all entered into the situation? Or what if the person switches it up? Now, is that, is the Bible still in agreement to that? I don't know, but it does say to stay if one's not a believer, even still. But just like hard things like that,
Yeah, it
things that
does
you
say
feel are
that. That's
poor.
crazy.
Mm-hmm. But it says if they're willing to stay with you, then you should stay with them.
You
Now,
should stay with them and be the example and the light.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say that's one of the biggest things, especially from us. And I think the three of us as a unit, as a crew would agree. Part of it is definitely, it's hard and it's not something that we would necessarily say, hey, do this or do that. But I think we would all agree on finding some form of wisdom and clarity from God, because scripture talks to us about like, sexual immorality is in a sense grounds for departure, or if the unbeliever abandons the marriage. And that's the part that like sometimes gets me, is just like, what does that even mean? Like, is it abandoning it from like, hey, I don't want to be married to you? Or is it abandonment because I don't want to open up to you anymore? Like, what you know is what you got, and that's enough. Like you said, I do to me. And so that's why I would always encourage people to seek God and seek the Spirit for that wisdom, because it's like, it's so many ways. And please, for those of you who are pastors who listen to the podcast, or those of you who are theologians, or those of you who know people, like, I would love to have a conversation about this, because like, what does, like, because I don't read Greek or Hebrew or Aramaic, but I would love to know, what does that abandonment mean? Is it abandonment like, hey, I left my family and I'm not, like, I left Tampa, Florida, and now I live in Georgia, Atlanta, and I have no desire to ever see my wife again? Or is it like, no, I'm going to shut down to you physically, emotionally, financially? Like, we become, as Sharika mentioned earlier, we just become roommates. We live in the same house, but I don't care about how you eat. I'm not stopping to get you nothing. I'm not cuddling with you. We're not having sex. Like, it's those moments, like, is that considered abandonment? And it's like, it's one of the things of like, some people were like, absolutely. And then others were like, well, no, he's still there. Like, he loves you enough because he hasn't left. And it's like, I don't feel loved by her. Like, it's nothing going on.
No, I draw the line at not picking me up something to eat. Like, that is not okay.
I heard that.
That is, food is so important. How dare you? Yeah, Evie, that's abandonment, because now you're messing with my quality of life.
Go get your own food.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's like that saying, I can do bad by myself. Like,
yeah,
if me being with you, and this might sound bad and not everybody has to agree, but something that I was very clear on with most of the people I dated, and my husband included, how is this going to enhance my life? Because what I notice is I'm doing great. And some of the hardest time in my life has been when I've been attached to someone. Making straight A's in undergrad. The one semester I made 2 B's is when I had a boyfriend. And it's like, listen, I need to know, how is this really going to enhance my life? And then, especially as a Christian, my other question was, will us being together help me to do better for the kingdom of God than if I was alone? Because that's just really the space that I was in. Like, if being with you is going to take away from my relationship with God or my quality of life, then why are you here? If I'm getting my own food and you're not having sex with me, I can do that. I can handle that by myself then. So we're over, because I will be fine. But there's a stress that comes with having dead weight. If you're just there and you're not offering anything, then go offer anything to somebody else, because I will do better by myself. At that point. This is a great little segue for one of the topics that we have today, but I have to start it with another question that has to do with relationships. What is the statute of limitations on the ownership you have in another person's life once the relationship is done? So if me and Bay have been together, let's say for 2 years, and we break up, is there an unwritten code or something you all think is appropriate when it pertains to the amount of time that passes before the other person can get a new boo? Is it rude if they get a new boo 2 days later, 2 weeks later, a month later? I personally feel like especially if we're just dating, you have no ownership. Once we break up, you break up with me, or I break up with you, I don't care if I find somebody 5 minutes later. That is my business. That's my prerogative. I have never felt some type of way about exes. Honestly, I really didn't keep up. So I don't even know their move on timeline. But if someone came to me and was like, oh, Sabrina, so-and-so. It's like, as they should, like, we are not together. Like, I feel, so I'm curious, is that just a Sabrina thing? Because I know sometimes I can have, thoughts that are against the grain. Or do y'all feel like, no, Sabrina, come on. If you were dating someone for 10 years and then they got with someone a week later, that's like not okay.
Yeah, so I think part of it would depend. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say there's a few things that it would depend on. It depends on how long we were together and how quickly you got to somebody else. Because if it's next week, I'm thinking you've been with that person in our relationship. Because, it's hard for me to say in a way because I am far from removed from that type of situation. Like you said, me and Alan have been together for a long time, but we were also in each other's lives for we obviously couldn't let it go. So it's kind of hard for me because I've never really been in that situation, girl. But yeah, so when we broke up, we didn't let it go, but I can understand how if I was dating someone for 5 years and then a week later they're with someone else, like I would be like, no, this don't sit well with me because I feel like now that there was not because you're in a relationship, but because I'm like, were you doing something shady behind my back?
Well, let's say there is no overlap. If there is no overlap and they just happen to meet someone a week later and hit it off,
because I'm like, oh, that like you can move on so quickly. Like, no, if it's like 3 weeks, like I don't know what the time frame would be, but I would feel like if I just got out of a 5-year relationship and now I'm with somebody, now I'm not saying dating or meeting, but if I'm like, no, this is my girlfriend, this is the person I'm now in a committed relationship with so soon, that I don't know, I would feel like, wow, oh, so is really over. I mean, I wouldn't.
That's what a breakup is. It's really over. Evie, I'm interested to hear Mel's perspective.
Yeah, so for me, I think it would depend on the commitment to the person and how it looked. So whether it was a week, whether it was a month, whether it was 3 years, a year, 5 years. Like if I didn't have really full feelings, like if we were fully committed to each other, then of course I'll feel some type of way. But like for me, and I always say this, and it's something that I could literally hang my hat on forever. And I don't like not a number, but like definitely over a dozen or so relationships. Now, most of them weren't necessarily serious, but Judith has been the only person who could say she met my family. Like there was no other female who kicked it with my mama. There was no other female who came to my house. There was no other female who can say, oh, I know this sister, or I know this. Like some of them knew my brothers because we went to high school together. Well, one of my brothers went to high school with him. He was a senior when I was a freshman. So some of them knew him through, oh, that's your brother, or tell your brother I said, hey, or like if they saw me and my dad like at a store, like we was at Walmart or something. I'm like, oh, maybe I seen you and your dad, like, relationship wise like that. But nobody, like, but even with them, it was two, which I can say nicknames. No, I ain't gonna say nicknames because you just never know who listens. But with two of them, I remember one of them being in Walmart, one of them being at a church event, at my dad's church. And like, I was like, hey, this my dad. But that was all it was. It wasn't like, hey, daddy, this my girlfriend, so-and-so. This is like, it was none of that. Like, so no person could ever say they, in a sense, were welcome into my family. But if it was somebody who I felt like we was close and we was committed, and I'd be like, I would say at least give me 3 to 6 months. And I'm only saying that because is there a possibility for us to get back together? Now, if I know there's no chance of any form of reconciliation, then you can hook up with whoever next week. Because if I'm really at a point where I'm not thinking about you no more, well, like I know there's no chance, there's nothing you can do, there's no apology, there's no amount of grace in my heart that'll say we would get back together, or in her heart to say that I would get back, that she would get back with me, because it could have been something that I did. Then it is what it is. Now, married wise, me and Judith, like, I feel like you're gonna have to give me 5. Like I tell people all the time, like, and I'll say it to y'all and I'll say it to whoever listens to the podcast, like, unless we have kids who my stuff go to, but if something were to happen to me, like, and I'm talking about even in death, not just a divorce, I'm talking about death. Like, don't give my clothes to no other dude, don't give my shoes to no other dude. Like, give them to my nieces, give them to my nephews, give them to the Salvation Army, give them to the thrift store. Forget that, you can go give them to the Goodwill for all I care. But I better not be in the heavenly realms chilling with Jesus while Jesus is at the right side of the throne, and I look down and I see one of my J's on another dude. Like, I'm like, hey,
but
Jesus.
If you give them to the Goodwill, another dude is eventually gonna wear them anyway.
Just not her dude.
Not her dude, though. That's a big difference. That's a real big difference.
He said not her dude. He said he is not replacing me. He is not walking in my shoes. Literally.
I'm saying literally and figuratively.
I am very
I did want to say
this.
I did want to add, EB was right. It depends on the feelings. If I really am like, I'm over, like if we break up and it's because I'm like, I'm done, I can't stand you, you could get somebody else the next day, the next minute, and I would not care. But if
that'll give me peace.
Even, okay, you'd be like, oh,
Right.
praise God, they going. But if you actually still felt a way, like, and even if you like, no, even if I'm like, you know what, I know this is the right thing to do for us. Maybe we don't need to be together, and I don't want to ever get back with you, but I still care about you, still have feelings. Then I might feel a way if you're with somebody else, just because I'm like, dang, I still kind of care about this person. But yeah, I think it's if you still care. If you don't care, then you don't care.
And that's the part, because in my mind, when a breakup happens, and you're right, it's not always both parties who are ready for it to end. But even if it's me and I'm still in deep like or love with the person and they break up with me, then that's just something I have to deal with on my own. But I'm not going to project those feelings onto them and their new relationship, and especially not their new partner, and try to make it something bigger. And that brings us to this whole pop culture drama between Justin Bieber, Selena Gomez, and Hailey, who is now Hailey Bieber. I think she was a Baldwin before. Mm-hmm. Now, I was not involved in this drama. I simply just had like not the greatest eyebrows, and they grow just like the hair on my head. They grow very nappy. They're curly. They flip over each other, whatever. So I'm on Facebook last week and I see this ad for laminated eyebrows. Now, I've never heard of this. So I'm like on Snapchat, like, have you guys heard of this? This is really cool.
Never.
Essentially, they like perm your eyebrows, but it's like something really delicate and good for your face. So like your eyebrows look like they do when you get your face like made up. It's phenomenal. It's great. It's called lamination. So I'm on Facebook, I'm on Snapchat, like, have you guys heard of this? This is really cool. I found 3 places in Tampa that do it. They all have 4.8 stars and above. I'm about to get this done to my eyebrows. And one of the young people snaps me and she's like, oh, is this your way of saying you're on Selena Gomez's side? And I'm like, what? I don't know what she's talking about. The most I know about Selena Gomez is her songs. I know she used to date Justin Bieber, but I was never like, that is the generation after me's drama. Like I was into the Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake kind of drama, like Beyonce and Jay-Z, that sort of thing. So I was like, I don't know what she's talking about. So then I go on a deep dive to figure out what she's talking about. But the first interesting point you all need to keep in mind is that just me talking about my eyebrow made, and she wasn't the only one, made other people assume that I was involving Selena Gomez in my life. That's a very important point to remember as we go down this deep dive. So evidently Selena Gomez and Justin Bieber were on and off. Selena Gomez dated The Weeknd in one of those offs. The Weeknd, who used to date, oh my God, I feel like such a middle schooler right now. So The Weeknd used to date Bella Hadid, who's a model, Gigi's sister. Selena and Bella used to be friends. So she was dating her friend's ex. She was not dealing with Justin anymore. Her and The Weeknd broke up. Her and Justin get back together for like their last time. And then after they break up, her and Justin break up for the last time, Justin gets engaged to Hailey 2 months later. That's the ground. So it goes back, and we've all heard our perspectives on how we feel. In my mind, if we're broken up, it doesn't matter if I still like you or you still like me. What we do next in our lives is our own business, because it feels kind of narcissistic to me to think, well, now you've moved on. Well, we're broken up. What am I supposed to do? Just wait until society says it's okay for me to like move? Like I'm moving on. So anyway, flash forward, there has been this juju in the atmosphere of Hailey and Kylie Jenner are bullying Selena. So Selena got on, I think, TikTok. I don't have a TikTok. And she was talking about first, which I think is weird. Remember, her and Bella were friends. Then she dated Bella's ex. So Selena's on TikTok like, oh, there's a filter that makes you look like Bella Hadid and gives you Bella Hadid's voice. And it says, hi, I'm Bella Hadid. So Selena's up there saying, I'm Bella Hadid. And then she's like, oh, in her regular voice, I wish I was as pretty as Bella. We can dive into that in a moment. I'm just laying out the facts right now. And then Selena, on a Justin Bieber and Selena fan page from like years ago, I'm not talking 2 years ago, like years ago, Selena comments on it because someone's like, oh, look at Selena with Justin when she was so skinny. And she puts like a little sad face. She makes another comment about how like, oh, he really liked to date models. And this is a man she dated years ago who is now a married man that she's commenting on. In that same TikTok where she pretended to be Bella Hadid, she then talks about accidentally over laminating her eyebrows. Kylie Jenner posts a couple of days later. She asks Hailey Bieber, and she's like, hey, is this how the eyebrows are supposed to look? She has a picture of her eyebrow, and she asks Hailey. Then people are like, okay, well, Kylie and Hailey are bullying Selena because they made this post. Then a video appears from 6 years ago. Y'all have to remember, because of Taylor Swift's feud with Kanye being married to Kim, there was drama there. And Taylor Swift felt like Justin Bieber was on the scooter brand Kanye side of things. So Taylor Swift heard Justin Bieber's name at a concert, award show, or whatever they were, and she put her finger at her mouth as if she was throwing up. So then, Hailey, when she was on her little TV show and somebody mentioned Taylor Swift, she did the same thing Taylor Swift did. She put her hand at her mouth as if she was throwing up. And you have to remember, this video is like 6 or 7 years old. So then Selena, last week, asks Hailey Bieber, and she's like, I'm sorry, but just so you know, Taylor Swift, my best friend, is one of the best to ever do it. Mind you, Hailey at this time has not added Selena, has not done anything directly to Selena. So far, the things Hailey has done is for other people. Yes, she started dating Justin Bieber. Yes, she was a fan of Justin Bieber when she was younger. When Selena and Justin were dating, Hailey like made a tweet like, oh, they're a really cute couple. So people are like, oh, she was trying to insert herself from the very beginning. We just talk about people grow, people change. Her and Justin Bieber did develop a friendship. Hailey also went on a podcast and was like, and this is the first time Hailey has spoken out publicly about the situation. And all she said was, it has never been any overlap between Selena and Justin's relationship and my relationship with Justin. But, I'm only on this side and I can only control my fans. She still didn't directly at Selena. Oh, and the other thing Selena did, they were at an award show like 6 months ago, and Selena posted a picture of her and Hailey. I guess to be like, hey, there's no beef, but Hailey didn't post that. Selena posted it. And then Selena's coming back commenting on a video for 6 or 7 years ago. Since then, both Kylie and Hailey Bieber have lost millions of followers on Instagram. Yes. And there are so many articles out there about how, like, Selena is like, oh, I'm just going to get off of TikTok because this is toxic. I'm too old for this. Mind you, Selena's the one who's been doing this. And then she just got back on, I think it was yesterday. And she's like, I'm back with a heavy heart. Girl, you weren't even off for a week. Now, what I've been seeing, and this is another one of those situations where I'm against the grain. A lot of people are like, Team Selena, how dare they? Even Kylie said, hey, I didn't even see Selena's post about the eyebrows. This is ridiculous. Selena commented under Kylie's post like, yeah, it is ridiculous. I'm a fan of yours. So Selena did speak up when people were trying to come for Kylie. She is not speaking up about this Hailey thing. I talked to one of my friends about it, and they're like, you have to understand, Justin got engaged to Hailey 2 months after, and that was wrong. And I'm thinking, that's none of Hailey's business. If this fine man who I've had a crush on is coming for me, and now he wants to marry me, and I'm about it, then I'm about it. What's Selena to me? It's like, they're broken up. That is not my business. And that's from 2 months ago. So that is the groundwork of it. I'm curious, and I know I said a lot, EB, and you were probably like me. You know nothing about this. This is not your cup of tea. But do you care to comment?
No, so I would say because of their stardom, you're naturally going to get attention about it. But most people, and I'm saying most people, I don't have a statistic on every relationship that has broken up or every wedding that has taken place. But I'm sure that this is somewhat common. It just doesn't get magnified always. But you have people who begin to even insert themselves of like, hey, like, when we were dating, were y'all texting? When we were dating, were y'all talking? When we were dating, were y'all leaking up? And you have individuals who begin to project at times realities and facts, because it could be what was happening. And then others who will project their insecurities on a situation. It's just unfortunate because you have three individuals who seem to be very influential within Generation Z and Generation Alpha, where like, why is this a thing? Why is this so, I guess you could say, why is this magnified, especially from years ago? Like, and I'm saying years ago, as in stuff that happened back in like 2017, 2018, whenever it kind of, the back and forth kind of started. But it's just like, we are at a place now where individuals should be adults and conduct themselves as such. And then you also, you got fans who don't make these moments any better, because there'll be more stuff that get brought to light or more connections because of what we would consider social media journalism or social media investigators who will find every little comment that was ever spoken to any party, any little like that was done, especially on like the Instagrams or on Twitters or on things like that. And it's just unfortunate. But I would say, as a, not necessarily as a wrap up, but something as a, like, when you, how would I word it? When you break up with a person, find your best to find closure in that situation, as hard or as difficult or as challenging it may be, whether that be just you cutting them off cold turkey or you having a full blown conversation. Because there's some people who literally just ghost people, and that other person never know what happened or what they did, or is it really over? While there's other people who are adamant on, hey, this is the end for us. So whenever you are finding yourself severing ties with someone or separating, I would say just be some form of an adult. I would say, be some form of an adult to have that conversation or that closure in some way, shape, or form. And then whatever happens after that, you can't control it. Like, however that person responds, however they take it, however they cope with it, that's just, it is what it is. You can't deal with that, or you can't handle that. That's all I got.
I think that I'm not gonna knock Selena for having her feelings, but girl, they've been married for 3 years now. You got to, at some point, let it go. Now, because, like, I'm just like, I could understand this. Maybe she did this 3 weeks after she found out, or a week after she found out they got married. She's trolling or doing all these things. But I'm like, girl, I had to look, I'm like, they feel like they've been married for a while. They've been married for 3 years. Girl, at this point, you got to just be like, well, he's gone, and just let it go and go find someone else to like, or go do something else with your life. But even if you still have feelings for Justin, you got to let this go, because he's gone and you got to let it go.
Yeah, if I was Hailey, I would have to beat her ASS, because this is going too far. It's one thing to have your feelings, that's fine, but you keep inserting yourself. Something I failed to add is Selena held the release of her song, which I love, Lose You to Love Me. That was truly a bop. She could have released it in February. She held it to release it the month after they got married. And she's quoted in an interview saying, like, I wanted him to hear it. It's like, maybe he don't want to hear it. Maybe he doesn't care how you feel about the fact that now that he's married, you feel like you've lost him and now you can really love yourself. Like, I get it. Like, it can come down to the bottom dollar, not saying that she needs it, but that is brilliant marketing. If you have that, in your arsenal to play with, like, okay, he's getting married and I'm gonna release a song about how I feel about it. And then she has another song on that album, which is also about, Look at Her Now. Like, yeah, it took a few tears and all that, but now I'm doing great. But it's like Sharika said, now it's years later, and you keep, like, for me, even the Bella Hadid thing is weird. If one of Doug's exes was like, oh, look at me, I'm Sabrina. Oh, but I wish I was as pretty as Sabrina. Like, I would find that weird. Like, I would not engage the person, which I think Hailey is doing and I pray her and Justin continue not to respond. Just let her have her moment. And I know it's very hard because she has millions. She's the most followed woman on Instagram in the world. Wow. She has, yeah.
From this moment though, that's the crazy part. That's one of the things that people wouldn't realize. Like, I think she was always like top 2 or top 3. But yeah, from this moment, she took Kylie Jenner's spot because people have started to unfollow Jenner and Kylie and what's the other one? Hailey or whatnot. So it's crazy to see how the world is. And then, like, I had seen something just because as we were talking about, I was like, this is more. and I would say more popular. It's more popular or more prevalent between those generations of Generation Z and Generation Alpha. But you're talking about 750 million hashtags for Team Selena, which is wild.
Right. And
to try to process. And I'm saying wild because it's like, it also lets us know, one, where, like, as I'm saying, us as a me, Sabrina, and Sharika, where we're at in this world, because we're not none of those 750 million hashtags. But also, if we had to choose, we also would look at it, not saying we're picking sides, so please don't try to come for us.
No.
Or, you know, but because we honestly, we don't know these people, but it's like, it just sucks because it's like, you have to get to a point where you move on. Like, stop antagonizing people, stop being I guess you could say, because I don't want to call a grown person a pest, but like, don't be a pest on a relationship.
It is. I'm glad you said it, and I'm in the minority here. And I'm a fan of Justin Bieber. That If I Was Your Boyfriend song, there's a lot of songs that I really like of his. I'm a fan of Selena's music, but I feel like I'm on the crazy train because most people I've talked to are like, and the team thing is weird too. I'm on nobody's team. I'm just trying to have an objective viewpoint and see what I see. I see one person directly adding another person and their family and bringing stuff back up, like commenting on stuff about an older relationship, about a man who is married, which I find disrespectful to the relationship. And then I see another person just living their life because people are like, well, Selena had a cooking show, but then Hailey had one. And then Selena invited her grandma and then Hailey did. And I'm like, a cooking show's not that unique. A lot of people got cooking. So, and even I think I'm not team Hailey, but I sympathize with her because I was just talking about my eyebrows and people assumed I was talking about Selena. That's how crazy the Selena fans are getting. Like, not everything's about Selena. Some people are just living their life. Justin had his birthday, and that's the other thing. I feel like it is calculated. Your ex-man's birthday. Like, you're doing all this stuff. You want a response? My response is, how come people aren't talking about the fact that the girl who gave you her kidney that was your supposed BFF unfollowed you? And there's beef between y'all because she's like, basically, how come you only care about your super famous friends? Because Selena was in her interview and she was saying, well, the only person I really hang out with on this level is like Taylor. Now, to be fair, the actress who gave Selena her kidney and they used to be really good friends, she's famous too, but not like on a Taylor Swift level. So I don't think Selena was trying to come for her friend, and she's not going to list every single friend she's got, but that friend was hurt. And that's not the only friend Selena has or had who's shared that same sentiment about Selena, caring about the status of the friends. Selena, I don't know you. And if your fans heard, I'm sure they would rip me to pieces, but I'm just saying from an outsider's point of view, you appear to be the antagonizer. So just maybe stop. Let this Hailey girl have a good relationship with Justin and that be okay. And if they fail, let them fail on their own. They don't need you commenting on stuff from years ago, bringing stuff back up, because I don't really know the part of what a pick-me is, but I've heard the term. It feels like that. I'm going to talk about how my ex really only preferred models and what you're fishing for comments. I'm going to talk about how my other ex's girlfriend is so pretty and how I could never be that pretty. Selena, you're effing beautiful. It's just it's giving weird. And I haven't seen her documentary, My Mind and Me. So maybe that if I watch that would give me more insight into this sort of behavior. But it's very hard for me to co-sign it because I can't understand it. I cannot imagine commenting on an ex's marriage. It just feels so disrespectful. I wouldn't, and being like, oh, well, when he was with me, this, or I'm going to at your wife and be like, oh, well, your wife shouldn't say something about one of my best friends. Taylor Swift doesn't need you to defend her. Taylor Swift is fine. Taylor Swift wasn't even commenting on it. Also, Taylor Swift came for her husband first. It sounds like a conversation between Justin, Taylor, and Hailey. But it's you can't miss an opportunity to insert yourself when it comes to Justin. I just happy to get that off my chest. And I know most 99% of the people will not agree with me. They'll just call me a hater and say I don't understand, and that Kylie and Hailey are bullying Selena, and they talk about how Selena's always been beautiful, but Kylie and Hailey haven't. They're really giving these low blows. And it just feels wild because everything with Kylie and Hailey's side and Kendall, because they brought her in, it is assumed. We are assuming that the eyebrow post was about her. We are assuming that she did the cooking show. But everything on Selena's side is direct. And it's like people have blinders on. And that's all. I'll close with that little comment. But Sharika, or Evie, if you have anything final before we get to our scripture.
I would just say, like, some things, this is where we talk about, like, some things. Hey, if you still feel the way about your ex, that's something you talk out with your girlfriends, and y'all be like, yeah, I see that. You talk about that, even if it's been 3 years. But girl, publicly, it just looks like. I mean, I don't care I don't care if Justin did leave you or was cheating on you with Hailey, and then they got married. Girl, they got married, and now it's 3 years later. At this point, it doesn't even matter how it was or what it was or when it went down. It's over now. That's the fact. So, girl, let it go and go live your life. You have so many other things that you could be putting your attention and energy towards. Like, that's how I feel about it. I'm like, I get it. You might be in your feelings, but at some point, girl, he said what he said. He got married. He said, I do. That's what he said. And girl, you got to let it go.
So I would say, and I'm closing out, I know this is another subject and we don't have to talk. Well, I would say let's not talk about it, but I'll just throw another relationship craziness that's out there, because it was going to be something that I possibly thought about expounding on, but I honestly don't care that much to expound on it fully. But just because we're talking about relationships, could you imagine having a close to billionaire boyfriend and then him tricking you to leaving the house by saying, hey, we're going to go on a short vacation. And then when you go on vacation, quotation marks in the air, you find yourself locked out and you find yourself basically, I don't know, you get dumped that way. So that's what just happened to some lovely lady by the name of Erica Herman and the one and only Tiger Woods. And it's just funny to me because it's like, I'm saying funny to me because it's like, why is this news? I'm trying to figure out how a person can even file a lawsuit. And that's why I love Florida, but I also highly dislike Florida. And I also highly dislike America on the things that we can file charges on or what we can have lawsuits, why we can file lawsuits on. Like, it should be dismissed effective immediately. But like, he dumped her, kicked her out of the house essentially. But she's filing a lawsuit for $30 million because when they, I guess, started kicking it, rocking it in 2017, he made her sign an NDA, but she's trying to come out with her tell-all story. And it's like, you should have known what you was getting into by who you're dating. You should have known what you was getting into by signing this NDA. You should have known who you was getting into by basically, and I don't know all the ins and outs of their relationship, but figuring out what role you're supposed to play in this, because you should have known that because of the powers that be and the money that people have, like, you would never have essentially the power in this situation. And it sucks because, again, I don't know all the details, but it was just funny because as we're talking about this relationship, that's one of the common threads or trending stories that's popping up of like, how is she mad because she got kicked out of his house? Like, it wasn't
right.
And it's just like, it's crazy that we live in a world.
I don't care. We're broken up. It's my house. Get the F out. And people want to be squatting and stuff. No, Sharika, I'm telling you, that little Becky just is trying to get her money. And she looks like she's crazy. You can tell by the eyes. Okay. Like, the situation is, you were with this man. He got a lot of money. And I don't think they just magically broke up in the blink of an eye when he took her on this vacation trip. She knew the end was coming. And she thought, well, he can't get me out of the house. How's he going to get me out of the house? I'll just stay here. I'll win him back. And he had something for her. She probably thought like, oh, this is our reconnection trip, he's going to run it back. And he was like, finally, like, the fact that he had to go through those extremes. Like, this is what I say about going against the grain. I'm thinking, why does he have to do this trickery? Probably because this person is not mature or sane enough to simply realize it's over. And she had her own money, I'm sure, but that's his house. I don't care if I've been dating you for 10 years. When it's over and it's mine, get out.
So, and I know you're about to kill us with the scripture, not kill us, but you're about to share the scripture with us. But guess what? Just because, you start reading stuff and you do more stuff. So currently, Tiger Woods is in violation of the listen to this, the oral Tennessee agreement and in violation of Florida law. So in my mind, I'm about to go stay with somebody because, his houses are crazy. I'm about to ask somebody, can I stay with them for a couple of weeks? Don't sign no paperwork and just stay there. And be like, Judith, we here now. Because this is wild that you make an oral agreement. No, like she was in my house because we was in a relationship. And now that we're no longer in a relationship, it's like those type of laws that I'm like, who wrote this law? Who signed it? And that's why I tell people always, and I know we'll talk about it more in November, and we'll talk about more when elections come around. Shout out to Tampa Mayor Jane Castor for winning another re-election, because she, from my eyes, I feel like she's been doing a solid job in holding people accountable, especially those in power who sits at the table with her. But it's like one of those things. That's why I always tell you people, stop voting based off of your political lines and your political parties. Like, vote on policy, get to know these people, go sit in on these meetings, know what they're talking about on their campaign trail. Be the person who makes them uncomfortable by asking them questions that they are unsure of. Like right now, we have a lovely lady by the name of Nikki Haley, and y'all can go look her up who she is. She's running for president for 2024. But my dog was like, we need to lower the retirement age, because these young people, millennials and Gen Z, they need to have money for them when they do retire. Guess what? They asked the lady what age she's thinking about. She said, I don't know. And I'm like, so we doomed. Like, the age has been going up just about every year for the past 5 or 6 decades, so to speak. And like, they ask you one simple question that you're trying to run on, then you hit them with like, you could have just said, we're going to reset to where it was in 1980. You can say anything. Like, you got to give the people something.
Move it right back to 65. Girl.
Yeah, like, but you're going to hit it with the, I don't know. It's like, oh, you done lost me. You had me for a little bit. You know, like, I might go switch my thing up and vote for you, because I don't know what we're doing on the other side. But I'm like, I might. But then when you hit me with that, I'm like, all right, go ahead, Ron. Ron, you need to go ahead and get in this race, because I can't do it.
Yes, let's dive into that next time, because that is a bigger conversation, and we're going to run it back to that retirement age thing. But Sharika, I know that I am not like the end all be all, and I am curious about other perspectives, because truly I can't understand the other side of it when it comes to the Tiger Woods thing. So as our bookend, can you just share the perspective of why she has a right to stay there, even though they're breaking up?
I'm not saying, I don't know anything about the story beyond what was shared. But I'm just going to say, sometimes people do be doing people wrong. And I'm not saying she's not above trying to get money. She might be. But I'm saying sometimes people do try to do people wrong. And if you did the trickery, if you weren't like, now I'm just going to take it from the side of like, maybe he didn't tell her. Maybe I'm taking it from what you said. If you were like, hey, let's go on a trip, and then I come back and I can't get back into the house that I've been living at for 3 years, or however long they've been living there, I would feel a type of way about that. Now, I don't
hers
know.
was worse. They planned the vacation. They told her to meet Tiger at the airport. When she got to the airport, they say, oh yeah, just a heads up, you ain't going nowhere. You got locked out.
See, that's terrible.
Yeah.
That is terrible. That is terrible.
I feel so, I don't know why it's bringing me laughter. And
Sabrina, I want you on it.
It's funny. It's funny, but it's like, dang. If it was me, it wouldn't be funny, but it's funny to hear, like, hey,
but Sharika,
hey,
it would never be you. It would never be you, because one thing my parents taught me, even in my marriage, and I didn't take this advice completely, but have your own. Sharika, I don't imagine you would be like, oh, I'm just going to be booed up. There's a reason why that's not wise, because this can happen to you.
True.
It can happen to you if you're married too, but there's so much more. You don't have to be basing it off an oral law or anything like that. There's a reason why it says don't be unequally yoked. There's a reason why. Now, you can try to do all those things and it can still go left. Don't hear what I'm not saying, but it wouldn't happen to you. It wouldn't happen to Evie. I can't see Evie being like, oh, Mom, you got a house. I'll just live here. You wouldn't make yourself that vulnerable. Mm. You know what would happen if that was me? I would go to my house, because I will always make sure if I'm just shacking up with someone who's a boyfriend, I'm always going to make sure I got a way. There's a way. Okay, I'm locked out and I have my stuff over here. I don't care if it's 10, 20 years. My mom and dad have been together for 35 years. Even when I was home, I was like, Dad, why don't you just let the apartment go? It's literally down the street. You can walk from one to the other. It's a 1-bedroom apartment. That's where he takes care of all his cars and stuff. He's like, no, because that's mine. It's like just the idea of having something. This person, you love them, but we both said people grow over the years. You don't know who they're going to turn up to. It's nice to know you got a little something just in case. And if Doug tried that to me, I mean, unfortunately, I would just have to run it back to North Carolina, because I don't have another house on the side. But in Jesus' name, that will never be my situation. So there we go. All right. Speaking of Jesus' name, let's go straight to the Old Testament. Numbers chapter 10, verses 29. We're going to start about there. Now, Moses, he's leading people out of Egypt still. We heard last week about how he was like, make sure you wear underwear if you're going to walk up the stairs. And this week he's talking to his brother-in-law. And it starts in 29, and this is the Message version. He said, Moses said to his brother-in-law, Hoab, son of Uriel the Midianite, Moses, his father-in-law, we're marching to the place about which God promised. I'll give it to you. Come with us. We'll treat you well. God has promised good things for Israel. So his brother-in-law is not an Israelite, but he's telling him, come hang with us, keep marching with us, and we'll treat you well. But his brother-in-law, Hoab, said, I'm not coming. I'm going back to my own country, to my own family. Moses countered, don't leave us. You know all the best places to camp in the wilderness. We need your eyes. If you come with us, we'll make sure that you're in all the good things that God has promised. And so they left. I found that to be hilarious because Moses, you said you weren't good with words, but you just tried to give your brother-in-law the okie doke. I was going to tell him, come with us and everything will be good and gravy. And when he's like, no, you're like, but actually we need you to come because we're camping out here and you're the only one who knows this wilderness. Like, really, Moses, you couldn't just start with the actual ask. You couldn't just like go ahead and be humble yourself and be like, we need you. And poor brother-in-law, he wanted to go back to his own country and family, and you're going to hit him with the guilt trip. I found that to be hilarious. God, please don't smite me. I know Moses is favored and beyond, and I have all the respect. But you created me, so you know my humor. And I just thought that was so funny. EB, what are you expounding on today?
Mine is going to be short and sweet. I know a lot of people don't always take heed to this advice when they're traveling abroad to connect with, I guess you could say the embassy that, the U.S. embassy in that host country that they are going to. But after a recent situation where I believe it was 4 or 5 people who got kidnapped, and on top of that, I believe 2 people got killed. I think from South Carolina, don't quote me on that, but they were going, from what I understand, going for a tummy tuck. The cartel assumed them to be drug traffickers or human traffickers and then kidnapped them, killed 2 of the people. Some of the people escaped. And it's one of those things of like, people didn't even know, in a sense, they were there. And then today, just reading a report of how, which this typically doesn't happen. If you travel abroad, you don't necessarily see either the FBI or government agencies inside of the airport, outside of airport employees. Like, you'll see customs enforcement agents, stuff like that. But like currently in Mexico, there's FBI agents who are inside of airports and throughout Mexico, encouraging American citizens to either 1, make sure you check in, or 2, be very, very cautious on how you travel in this country. And I know there's dangerous places in Mexico, and there's dangerous places in America, and there's dangerous places in Japan, and there's dangerous places in Haiti, and there's dangerous places in Bahamas. There's danger all across this world. Like, we live in a world surrounded, in a sense, by evil and sin and craziness. I'm just saying, those of you, especially in this month of March, and I know for a lot of our listeners, especially those college kids who you travel for spring break, you kick it with people, you go on vacations, just be mindful of your surroundings. Don't be one of those people who like, oh, I'm gonna travel solo, I'm gonna do my own thing. Like, if you got an iPhone, because I'm assuming Android's got the same thing, but if you have an iPhone, share your locations with your family or your friends. Be one of those people who maybe, like, I don't know, I've even done this on a few occasions where I'll share on my, of course, like, you share your location, but then I'll have my Apple Watch literally like in my book bag or something, just in case something were to happen to me. Now, part of it is because my Enneagram, like, I think worst case scenarios everywhere I go, like most rooms or most meeting spaces, you all kind of see me with my back towards the crowd, just in case something were to happen or something were to break out. But that's just kind of how I operate. And I'm not saying for you to operate like that. Like, you'll always hear Sabrina hit y'all with a scripture of, God didn't give us a spirit of fear, right? So I'm encouraging you to just be mindful and to take initiative on how you lead your life and how you live your life. Yes, God protects all and God covers all, but God also encourages us not to walk through life ignorant, as if nothing can or will happen to us. Like, you just see that by the people he wants you to be surrounded with. You see that by him telling you that he wants you to live in community. You see that by saying you're part of the body of Christ. Like, you're not just this soul being. So, stay prayed up, stay locked in, stay encouraged, stay at peace, stay surrounded by people who wants to make sure that you are always good, loved, and safe. That's all I got. Oh yeah, and then some guy by the name of Mitch McConnell fell, and he's in the hospital. Pray for that. Pray for that.
I didn't know that.
Me either.
That politician.
I didn't. Yeah, well, it's the way you said it. I'll just say it like that. I'm gonna go ahead with my recommend. Why is it so funny? I'm trash today. Yes. Where was I? Oh, golly, now I done lost my little thingy. Well, I talked about the Plain English podcast last week, and this week I'm going to recommend a book. Forgive me, Sharika and Evie, do not hate me if I've already recommended this before, but The Count of Monte Cristo is one of my favorite books, and I'm doing like a rehash of some of my favorite books over time. Alexandre Dumas. It tells this beautiful story of revenge and why in some cases, even though you deserve that, you deserve to get them back, why it's probably not the best idea, but it's beautiful. And I suggested to Selena Gomez because I know she's feeling some type of way right now. But yes, The Count of Monte Cristo, if you've never read it, pretty easy read, very, very entertaining.
For me, there is for those of you who have HBO Max, and I know for some people it's some what would be considered suggestive or explicit language, but I enjoy not necessarily listening to suggestive or explicit language, but I enjoy listening to people dive into what they are dealing with or what they have going on. But I'll encourage you guys to check out Marlon Wayans' God Loves Me special on HBO Max.
Ooh, I was just heard about that special. My recommend is from it's an old show that every now and again I run back an old show, and I was on Disney Plus and I saw Smart Guy was on there, and so that's my recommend. It was fun times. So that's what I'm
Smart Guy.
Huh?
That's a good show. I'll say Smart Guy. That's a good show.
Oh yeah.
All right. As always, we hope you enjoyed this episode. We hope you gleaned from different situations that we talked about, especially some of the relationship fiasco or just talking about the scripture that Sabrina hit us with, or maybe there's something else that you would like us to dive into or expound on. So as always, our inbox is open and free for comments, suggestions, questions, answers if we have them, or topics to discuss. We would love to hear from you, our listeners, of what you want us to dive into and what you want us to talk about. We are open to hearing those suggestions. As always, if life tries to knock you down, make sure you kick back.